Hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 11 of Nothing Else Mattress, music podcast that's setting out to establish what we think are the 100 greatest albums ever recorded. To do that, we're using the latest Rolling Stone list and looking at their top 100. We've reviewed 50 to date, and we have voted 60% of those in 30 albums. So we've got another 70 to find. Going to do another 5 tonight. So to help us do that tonight, we have our friends. So we have Lisa. Hello there, good evening.
Hi there.
We have John. How you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you, Brian.
Good man. And we have Stephen. How are we?
Stephen, no, very well, sir.
Good man.
How are
So,
you?
yeah, great, thank you. Still looks nice and sunny where everyone is, so apologies for keeping you all inside tonight. We've got 5 more to do. George can't make it tonight, but you're all pleased to know he's given us his votes. Okay, and we've also got the votes in from previous guests as well, Chris, David, and Graham. So,
Is George given any expletives within the vote?
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, you know him too well. I might filter those out a little bit. You know, I think we're on the borderline with YouTube at the moment after Lisa's comments from last week.
Bullshit.
Away again.
So, John, just double checking, mate. Nothing you want to veto from last week, last episode? No.
No, not at this stage. However, my views are very plain and clear on the matter at hand, and let's just leave it there.
Okay, well, I think we might revisit that matter tonight.
Very soon.
We also had Graham on last week, obviously, and Graham gave us another guest nomination. So I think that's 3 guest nominations we've got now, which was the Dennis Wilson album, which is actually really good. So looking forward for you guys to hear that. And just one other thing, just when we're at 50 there, I kind of paused for breath a wee bit, and without sort of talking through all the 50 that are coming on, but I had a quick look and just in my head, just anybody who I thought might have been on the 100 list but isn't, you know, whether we vote them on or not. I just was curious to see who maybe wasn't on it. And I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 6 names here, so in fact 7. Rod Stewart, The Kinks, The Jam, Blondie, Elton John, Elvis Costello.
Sorry, what was that last one? Did you say the Cramps?
No, we'll come on to them. You know, and I listen, we may well vote the Cramps in, and they're an amazing band, but you know, if you think about like big hitters and stuff like that, guys that have, you know, been massively influential and very commercially successful, you know, there's some pretty big guys there that aren't on the list now, so it is a pretty tough school. Never mind whether we vote them in or out. Plus the Cramps, of course, plus Rush.
And the Smiths.
And the Smiths, we'll get to that for sure.
Rush it out.
Rush it out. Okay, so number 50 on this week's, Stephen will be pleased to know, is Jay Z with The Blueprint. Okay, so I'll read you the Rolling Stone comments and then we can have a chat about it. So with The Blueprint, Jay Z took on anyone and everyone who wanted to sit on his throne, even the jesters. Take Over, one of rap's most precise and unrelenting diss tracks, commits GBH on rappers Nas and Prodigy. When Hova isn't taking shots at record executives, cops, critics, haters, biters, and his absent dad, he inches towards vulnerability on Song Cry. Izzo, with dynamic production by Kanye West, gave him his first top 10 single. Jay-Z elevates clever rhymes and innovations with an unmatched air of calm control and a cavalier confidence. Here's the moral of the story, courtesy of Takeover. You guys don't want to have it with me. Okay, so that's Jay Z Blueprint, number 50, released 9/11/2001, which we might come back to. It's his 6th studio album, and we've already reviewed one from Jay Z. So just to get us going, because we've given rap or connected rap a bit of a kicking really so far on the podcast. So I thought I would try and give this one as much time as I possibly could, because I think one of you guys said before, it's not a genre that we maybe all naturally sort of fall into, being white and pretty old. So yeah, so I get
yourself
older than some other people, John. Sorry about that. So I gave this a whole bunch of plays. Genuinely did, and you know, dug into it, and also had a wee look at what else is kicking about here. So I reckon we've had about 7 so far rap stroke hip hop albums in the 50. So although it's felt like quite a few, there's 43 if you want that haven't been, and I reckon there's about another 10 in the top 50 So that'd be, what's that, 17 out of 100. So obviously it is important and has its importance. So I guess that's my sort of positioning on it. And I do have a view on the album. So to kind of kickstart the chat off, I actually really enjoyed this much more so than I ever thought I would. I wasn't a particular fan of the last one we reviewed. I don't know if pop's the right word for it, but for me, it's as close to rap ever gets to pop. Partly because of the sampling, partly because of the guests, and to be honest, just some of the music really that he does on it, and some of the name checks and stuff that he does. So, as I say, I'm not sort of carried the whole conversation, but it's not a slam dunk discount for me. I think there's an awful lot of good stuff in it, albeit it's still, you know, rap, and there are still some issues with how good or bad it is. So does anyone want to kind of add to that chat to start off, and then I can wheel that one back in?
Yeah, I'll start. And I'm not going to get steamed in. Okay, I would need to hear it again. I've only heard it twice,
Right.
and I don't. It's a bit like you. I don't despise it as much as the previous one. You know,
Yep.
I would like to hear it more often on my own, possibly in the car, so I'm just driving about and just be able to spend a bit of time with it. It's not as awful as the previous one. That's all I'm prepared to say, really. But you see, it has some redeeming qualities. It seems to have got better with
Yeah.
this one. It seems to have improved. It seems to have grown up a little bit, possibly.
And why do you think you don't dislike it as much as the other one? What would be your sort of summary of that? Why you think that?
It's better. He's got other
Better.
people on it. He's mixing it up, and he's not trying to be Dr. Dre or somebody anymore. I don't know. Is the guy maturing? Is he getting better?
Hmm?
I don't know. It's a
Well,
worry. I'm starting to half like it.
we have voted in, you know, some hip hop rap. Who did we vote in? NWA, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we're not anti it per se, but
Of course
it
not.
has been a hard landing for us. So this one I think was his 6th studio album. So maybe you're right. Maybe he's just getting better at making
Yeah,
them. Maybe.
exactly. Or he's get different producers.
Well, he's got a whole load of producers, but he's had that, I think, pretty much through his career, albeit he's the sort of common thread on all of it. His first album, we voted, that was 67, wasn't it? We voted that as a no, Reasonable
Yeah.
Doubt.
Yeah.
And this one has been in all 3 of the Rolling Stones lists, so it's went 464, 252, and 50, obviously, on this one. So whatever that assessment is of Jay Z in the sort of music market, if you want, he appears to be getting more credibility rather than less as time goes on.
He's doing something better.
Yeah, so putting all that one side, your summary is you didn't hate it as much as the last one.
No, I didn't. I'll just set fire to the previous one.
Right. Yeah.
But this one, I'm going to give myself a wee 10 seconds to think about this, whether it's in or not.
Okay, no bother. We'll bring Lisa and John in. John.
Yeah, we talk about rap music and hip hop and all that sort of stuff, but really, what's underneath all of that? It's soul and it's pop, right? And if you actually listen to a lot of the songs in this, that's what's underpinning it. You know, he's mixing Al Green in there. There's some gospel music and stuff like that. So I think it's a bit disingenuous to say rap sucks, because, you know, if that's the case, you're not really listening to the music.
Yeah.
It's a more modern take. Yeah, people, you know, will talk about, you know, punk being a follow on from bands like the MC5 and the Stooges and stuff like that. So he's pulling in influences from all over the place, right? You know, which is good. Some of it, I think, could be better. I mean, quite interestingly, Billboard say he's the greatest rapper of all time. Have they heard Goldie Looking Chain? Seriously, right?
Yeah.
I'll leave that there.
Or Eminem.
Yeah, well, indeed.
Does he not?
Sorry,
I mean,
Lisa.
Here, Eminem appears in Renegades, the track Renegades.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned him, because I think that's one of the interesting things for me, is that he is punching his weight with some other, big hitters, if you want. Maybe
Sorry,
just,
I'm moving out the sun.
he's maybe just more comfortable in his kind of position of being this greatest rapper. He's certainly the most successful one, right? Whether he's the greatest, I guess, is a
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he is, but I really like the album. I think there's a few standout tracks. I mean, I think the early one, The Ruler's Back.
Yep.
The trumpet going on in that song is just absolutely fantastic. Would you expect trumpet on a rap track? Probably not. And that's what's good about it. He mixes things up. And his backstory is quite interesting. I'm sure we've maybe talked about that before, but he had a really tough upbringing. And funnily enough, he went to school with Busta Rhymes and Notorious B.I.G. and stuff like that. So I think he's clearly done well for himself, hasn't he?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and I think somehow I think his first album came out in 1996, and up till pretty much now, I've missed his music. For 27 years, I've not listened to any Jay Z stuff, so I'm probably claiming a world record on that, quite frankly. But
No, I was the same, John. I think you did
Mm.
right. I think it was a bit of a blind spot, and I think we talked briefly about Glastonbury last time we reviewed them, and that was the first time I'd actually been exposed, if you want, to a gig and some of that that sound and experience. David F. Ross talks about going to rap gigs, and he says they're unbelievable. They're like a force of nature. Albeit David, as you know, is into his mod and all the classic stuff as well. So there's definitely something in there in the genre that as you say, we've maybe been a little bit ignorant to.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen like Public Enemy a few times live. Absolutely love them. I think they're fantastic. But this is good. There's to say tracks like, I think Girls, Girls, Girls. I really like that. It's really laid back. It's probably, to me, it's the most commercial sounding. And you mentioned pop. There's definitely a commercial element there. That said, the lyrics to the song are a bit hackneyed, I would say. But just
that one.
Yeah,
just the groove of it. I like the music to it, but you're kind of listening to the lyrics and thinking, come on. So I do like it. I think what's the other one I liked? Whole Vita, quite funky. Got a really good repetitive guitar in it. So yeah, pretty good. And I think, what was the other one? Heart of the City. I think that would be my standout track on it. And again, he's using an old song and mixing elements of that with his own take. So yeah, I thought it was pretty decent.
And on the Girls, Girls, Girls song, I think he does it twice, doesn't he? And on the second take, Michael Jackson's doing backing vocals, uncredited, I think. But he was there, and again sort of turned up and did a turn and went away again. So there is stuff going on. The thing that I smiled about the first when I was sort of listening to it, because the lyrics are quite hard to pick up unless you actually sort of sit and listen to them. But the very first song, Wheelers Back, you mentioned, one of the first people in name checks is Right Said Fred.
I thought I heard that.
I just loved that. I thought, wow, I've just totally misjudged this guy. He obviously has awareness of so many things going on in the world, and he boils that into his own version of East Coast hip hop rap. So.
Well, I'd have been more impressed.
Sorry, John.
I hope. Oh, sorry.
More impressed, what, mate?
I thought I'd have been more impressed if he'd name checked Goldie Looking Chain.
Well, maybe he should. Is he not one of the ones he's dissing? No, I don't know.
Don't know. So they were the Welsh rap band. Remember them?
Yeah.
Of course I do. Of course I do. Well, listen, they might pop up, as you well know. So I'd say it was released on 9/11. Released on the same day, 2001. And talk about a day not to release an album, right? So I didn't have the easiest launch, as you can imagine. So all the PR and stuff was killed, wasn't it, for a while? And even allowing for that, it sold 500,000 in its first week, debuted at #1, and just stayed there. Just became this thing over time. It was probably the record that it cemented them forever. and then he never really looked back with all the singles and stuff. And we talk about that kind of recognition thing that you know we sort of look at elsewhere. And I think I've done this a few times. And he popped up that year. He was number 4 on the NME's albums of the year. Which again, if I'm being honest with, I was a wee bit surprised about. But it was. And 1, 2, and 3 were. Oh, go on, I'll always give you a chance for 1, 2, and 3. John, you're good at this. 2001, 1, 2, and 3. Album
But
of the year.
the album,
NME.
put me under pressure.
I know.
See.
I like you doing this.
2001.
You get one of them. One of them's iconic. I'm surprised it's not in the book or on the list.
Would it be Oasis?
Oasis in there.
No, 3 was 3 was
Mannix.
3 was White Stripes, White Blood
Mhm.
Cells. 2 was Spiritualized, Let It Come Down, and 1 was The Strokes. As this hit. So
Yeah.
you know, at least 2 of those are pretty good, right? So if not all 3. So again, that kind of, you know, UK cool audience, for want of a better phrase. You know, again, he was getting recognition even then from that audience. So something going on there that definitely works for him. Lisa, what's your Jay Z take?
Well, I'm just glad that you've all talked for ages, because I don't think there's anything left to say, really. What I did ask you earlier, but John and I were I was interrupting John, so was I haven't done such extensive homework as you, so I hope he wasn't complimentary about Right Said Fred.
It wasn't complimentary. It was observational.
Okay.
It was just picking up the songs and stuff like that. It was a sort of lyric he dropped in, and
Right.
yeah.
Sorry, I've maybe just not listened to it enough. I've got to put my hand up, and I know that I'm really terrible at that. With obviously restricted with time, I'm much more likely to listen more to the records that I'm enjoying, and I just find the way that he raps is just his voice is just so monotone, and I get really bored, and I know there must be lots of things happening in the background, as John said, but as you both said, but I tend to drift off, and then I'll go, oh, there's Eminem, recognise the voice, and I can, you know, come awake again. But it's just not my kind of thing. And for all it was successful and everything, it ultimately comes down to your personal taste, doesn't it?
Sure, that's why we're on.
So
And he recorded it in 2 weeks. So again, no messing about. He's got this reputation, hasn't he, doing single take raps and stuff like that. So, and he doesn't do them off lyric sheets and what have you. So he does crack on, get them done. And he also was out a co-headline and stuff. So him and Eminem actually co-headlined later on in the decade. Which again, I'm not sure whose idea that was, but I don't think there was too many rappers kind of doing that together. It's quite an unusual thing to do. And I think we mentioned before he supported U2, didn't he? On a tour, which again was sort of fairly brave. Glastonbury we talked about as well, and so there's a bit. And the only thing I would say is there's not an awful lot of humour in his world. I think some of his songs are quite humorous, but it's hard to find kind of anecdotes and stuff about him that you would find with some other sort of great artists. It seems to. Maybe it's just being Mr. Beyonce. Maybe it takes its toll. You know.
Can I just say that it's not that I'm anti-rap. I'm not at all. It's just I just don't get that sound. You know. I mean, I was at a gig, believe it or not, a few years ago in North Berwick, and saw the Sugar Hill Gang. I've never seen a better gig. It was absolutely.
Yeah, I bet.
The humour, the history, the theatre. You know, it was incredible. And compared to this, I just.
Yeah, they were excellent, weren't they? I saw them, I'm guessing it'd be around at the same time. I saw them at Kendal Calling Festival, Sugar Hill Gang. Just brilliant. Yeah.
They blew it out the water. It was incredible. One of them did get carried off eventually. He was just so out of it. The bottles of champagne on the stage and everything. It was brilliant entertainment. Absolutely
brilliant.
It
was. You should get them.
Just another weekend in North Berwick, Lisa, right?
Well, you know what it's like.
Exactly.
Pop stars and wannabes.
Yeah.
It'll be Millport next, John. Twitter was 86% no. which obviously is a fairly tough school. The length's 63 minutes, so again, I think it is 10, 15 minutes too long, but it's not in that world of some of the other ones that we've obviously reviewed that genuinely do seem to have went on forever. I highlighted 1, 2, 3 verses, 9/10 songs. I circled as saying, yeah, they'll do for me. And I don't know how many's on it, but that's quite a lot of songs to like. So
15.
15, mate. All right, 2/3 or so. It's pretty good. That sounds like a good album to me. So, okay, let's have a shot on it. So let's see what the guys have got. So we've got a no from Skin. We've got a yes from David F. Ross. And we've got a no from Chris and a no from George. So, Stephen.
I'm going to go yes.
Stephen's a yes. Thank you very much. John.
Yes.
John's a yes. Lisa?
No.
You're a no. And I'm definitely a yes on this one, and I was definitely a no the last time. So that is
That's exactly my opinion.
1, 2, 3, 4. Try to do my numbers now. 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah, 4 out of 7. So yes, he's in. So yeah, don't know how I feel about that, but he is. And I actually went and watched. I think we talked about the Glastonbury thing the last time, but I went and watched it after that, and I didn't watch it all because I'm not entirely sure I would watch a whole Jay Z concert. But it's very interesting. You know, they did that Wonderwall thing at the beginning where it was the Mo Gallagher argument and all that stuff. So he does come on and sings that. But actually he then sings, I think he sings Smack My Bitch Up, Prodigy and Rehab, Amy Winehouse. So although he moves into his core kind of rap world, you know, he's clever enough to get a sort of festival crowd in and then, you know, work them back to what he did, and crowds seem to be loving it and stuff. So
There's your humour, doing Wonderwall.
do you know, yeah. I know Liam Gallagher's voice maybe isn't what it was, but I mean, Jay Z absolutely murdered this thing. It's brutal, but the humour was good, yeah, for sure. So cool. Okay, Jay Z's in. 49 is Outkast. So we've already reviewed Stankonia from Outkast, which was a borderline no. I don't know if you remember that chat. It was quite an interesting one. Okay, so this one, 49, Acrimony. The title of Outkast's third album is a made-up word that combines the star signs of Big Boy and Andre. The music is about duality too, matching Big Boy's imperative to make the club get crunk with Andre's determination to activate the left and the right side of the brain. Andre was a virtuoso, clipping off compound rhymes with grace, while Big Boy's more grounded flow and clear diction rooted their songs. Hits like Rosa Parks put the Joe's hometown Hotlanta on the rap map, and at a time when formulaic albums by Master P and Puff Daddy topped the charts, Outkast unleashed an explosive sound that used live musicianship, social commentary, and a heavy dose of deep funk to create the greatest record ever to come out of the Dirty South. Okay, so that was Rolling Stone, number 49, Acrimony, released September 98. John, tell us about Outkast, sorry.
Right, okay, so so the first thing, on the previous podcast when Stankonia was up, I wasn't on that, but I thought it was a really good album and I thought it should be voted in. However, you bastards didn't, so I'm still raging about that, right?
Veto.
So I'm not happy. So I'll just
don't miss a podcast,
there, right?
John. That's the lessons. No, don't miss the podcast, mate. You know
exactly. But again, 74 minutes long. It just does my head in. I know I've said this a few times about albums, but it's probably half an hour too long for me. They've also got these little kind of spoken word vignettes or skits in between, you know, quite a few of the songs. Adds nothing. You know, it's bordering on Sieg Sputnik nonsense, quite frankly. Get it to fuck.
Okay, so just on that then, what about when like the Kinks did that or the Small Faces did that? Because they've all done it, right? With, I'll call them concept or themed records, Village Green Preservation Society, Organ Nuts Flake. You know, some cracking bands have had that idea of linking songs through some sort of story and stuff. So is it just the principle you don't like, or is it this album?
Well, I've never really heard it work yet.
Right.
Stick to the music. That's what you're good at. You know,
Okay.
if I want to hear a storyteller or a comedian, and I know where to go, but not here. But anyway, back to the record itself. Took about 3 years to record or write it up, so quite a long time. In some ways, again, one of the first songs on it, I think it's the second song, isn't it? Return of the G. So that's the G's the gangster, right? It's kind of a really good laid back tune, but the rapping on it is it's way too forced, it's way too fast. It doesn't suit the music, which I think's a real shame, because I think the melody running through it, or the tune, is bang on the money. So I think they've kind of missed a trick in some ways in some of these songs. Rosa Parks, an early song as well on the album, really liked that. Obviously, everyone knows who Rosa Parks is. And conversely to Return of the G, I think the rapping really does suit the music on that particular track. Interestingly, though, Rosa Parks sued the band over the song, which was
That was
pretty
for
incredible.
permission, I think, wasn't it, to use our names?
Yeah, and they were saying, well, that's
It was
just
the
the name of the
lawyers.
track.
Sorry?
Sorry, John, I read that it was the family afterwards said no, it wasn't her personally. Her lawyers were looking for a wee bit of a way to make some money. Don't know what the truth is, though.
Yeah, I don't know. And one of the lawyers was Johnny Cochran, who famously represented O.J. Simpson in his court case, and some of the other rap artists such as P. Diddy, Tupac, and Snoop Dogg back in the day. So, but the band settled out of court, I think.
They did.
So that was the outcome. So,
They did.
the title track of the album, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. Is it Aquemini? Is it Aquemini? Aquemini?
Gemini.
Gemini. So
yeah.
Aquemini. Yeah. I think that's a really cracking track on it. Again, musically really strong. Just again, good laid back vibe. And there's some interesting. I don't know what they've done in the studio, but there's a bit of kind of delays and echoes and just wizardry. And I think it really adds to the song. So again, quite a lot of different sounds going on, a bit of gospel, even a little bit of country, funk, soul, all that kind of stuff, rap, as we know, even some bossa nova at times. I could feel, and quite interesting. I mean, they were a band that were probably, there was always this East versus West thing going on, wasn't there, in rap music? And I got, really actually deadly serious at a point. But these guys were from the South, and just bringing something different to it. So, I mean, I think it's a solid album, but I don't think it's exceptional. And personally, I don't think it stands up as well as Stankonia did for me. So that's my take.
Lovely. Perfect. So it was huge when it came out. It went platinum 2 months after it was released, because they did have that momentum. I think it came out after Stankonia, didn't it? Peter #2, and all the guys saw it as a bit of a homage to things like Sly and the Family Stone, some of the sort of blaxploitation stuff that had been on in the early 70s, because they were kind of adamant they were going to use real instruments, and the samples would be kind of proper sampling, and a lot of guest vocalists and the backing track singers and stuff were all, fairly well-to-do artists. So there was a lot of kind of honesty in the record, which I think was why it was so well received. But you're right, Stankonia was also a great record, and they're quite close to each other. So interesting to see which one comes out best. Lisa, Stankonia. Sorry, Aquemini.
I actually think I enjoyed this a lot better than Stankonia.
Okay. Why was that, do you think?
Just after a few listens, I know they're a band that like to try and sort of reinvent themselves, and every album they want to do something different. And I thought this was really quite funky. A lot of the tracks were really quite funky, a real groove to them. I don't know. sorry, what's the first track called? It's tiny. Hold on, stay strong, I think.
Yeah, there's a
Oh,
kind of
yeah, that's
one
right.
minute track.
It's
Yeah,
just this little intro.
yeah,
And I was really kind of thinking, I really like the sound of this. And then it just disappears and goes into Return of G, which I did think was quite funky in itself, but I would have liked to have seen them develop that first wee part, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I really liked the fact that it seemed there's a lot more singing on this album, not just rap. I like the live instrumentation. In fact, that I was talking about, is there a glockenspiel in that? It's quite interesting.
Yeah, there's kind of everything in there, isn't
I
there?
think
Yeah.
that first bit I was talking about,
Yeah.
it's like a glockenspiel, and you don't
Yeah.
really expect to hear that. So yeah, I found that all quite interesting. I think that, you know, and a lot of rap is really sort of doom and gloom, and I find that they tend to be a bit more positive in the themes that they explore. You know, maybe they do look at the impermanence of success and the inevitable passing of time, but you know, the message seems to be try and be a better person.
Mhm.
You know, and there's sort of they take a role each in their lyrics, trying to get that message across. And I think they just want to create a lasting impression. But I really like the song Liberation,
Yep.
which probably encompasses all that. And
That's the
it's
one with Stevie
got,
Wonder on it. Is that right?
it's got Erykah Badu.
Oh, of
The
course it
female
has, right?
voice is
Yeah,
Erykah
yeah,
Badu. Of course,
yeah.
we reviewed her album a while back,
We did, yeah.
which I thought was quite interesting. And
Well, they were
actually,
together, weren't they?
yeah, well,
Her and
she
Andre. Yeah.
had Andre Benjamin's child.
Yep.
So that was I really enjoyed that track. So liked the piano on it. So all in all, I think I preferred it to Stankonia. Is that,
That's interesting.
I don't know.
And you enjoyed them both, I think, because I think you quite like Stankonia.
I did.
Yeah.
There was something about this that I
Okay.
just felt it was just that wee bit more melodious and there was more happening. It was just different, probably to do with the instruments and the music going on.
Okay,
Perfect. Stephen.
I'm pretty much going to repeat what Lisa said. I know that's dull, but no, not what Lisa says.
Thanks.
Sorry, not
I'll
me
have
being
more
repeating
wine.
stuff. Yeah. I preferred this Stankonia also. Miles better, in my opinion. Miles and miles and miles better. It feels more like a real album instead of something synthesized, produced. You know, it feels like there's human talents getting used here and proper voices and guys playing instruments, and it feels like a real album. And I mean, I hadn't heard it till about 3 weeks ago, and I've been playing it a lot,
Mhm.
and I'll continue to play it.
Mm.
And I'm going to be quick here. I'm going to get in early, and before you even get to the vote, Brian, I'm going to stick it in. I really, really liked it.
Okay. Well, I think like, there's not many artists that have got 2 in the 100 as it stands. You know, you're in with some of the big hitters. You know, I think we've done some Hendrix already, and no doubt there's the Beatles and a few others to come with that. But they've got 2 in there, and a bit like Jay Z, I guess, isn't it? That there's obviously some going on in that recognition of what they do.
But should Stankonia be in there?
Well, it was in
Yes.
there.
This
See,
is going backwards.
see the fact that
Yeah.
you do have 2 in the top 100. Andre 300 should change his name to Andre 100.
Hey. On all week.
You're
On
all
all
week,
week.
aye.
Oh, brilliant. So they
I'll do
snuck
the
in
joke.
when they did the first one. I think they were 500. I think in the first Stone list, sorry, and they're now up to 49. So again, a bit like Jay Z, they appear to be gathering kind of recognition and credibility. But yeah, I mean, I really liked it. I genuinely did prefer Stankonia, and although I was playing devil's advocate, John, I didn't particularly enjoy the interludes either. I thought they almost broke the sort of mood of it rather than help join it together. But I liked all the chill stuff, as Lisa says. I think I don't know if they'd ever do like a chilled album per se, but I think their musical ability is fantastic. So I'd love to hear a bit more of that, as well as just the kind of the out rap stuff that they do.
Yeah, I think everybody's said, the musicianship's on it's really good. I think overall they used 40 different musicians, which is pretty phenomenal. Including Jim Smith from the rock band Cardiacs, which I was
Didn't know that.
a bit surprised when I saw his name flying up.
I did see they used the Genesis sample, one of their songs, which that surprised me a lot as well. I wouldn't encourage anyone to do that, but they seem to be quite brave to just do what they want. And again, there's a theme here, isn't it? These guys that eventually become big and get recognition, whether it's Bowie or anyone else for that matter, they tended to just keep doing what they wanted to do, and then eventually they got recognition for doing that rather than sort of changing what they wanted to achieve. So I've got a lot of respect for them for that as well. I liked the Rosa Parks. There was a line in Rosa Parks I wrote down because I was reading about that lawsuit thing, and it says, aha, hush, hush, hush that fuss, everybody move to the back of the bus. Which was obviously the bit that sort of kicked them into the debate about were they actually using the story, or was it just a jumping off metaphor for, for people standing up for themselves and all that kind of stuff. But they're very clever guys. Got a lot of time for them. I did prefer Stink on it. I'm pretty sure I voted it on, John, and I think I got a bit of a shepherd's crook on that from others. So we'll have a wee guess on it. We'll obviously need to wait on Stephen coming back. The other thing I was going to mention, sorry, just before Stephen come back, was I didn't. If I knew this, I forgot it. That Andre 300 played Jimi Hendrix in the biopic in 2014.
I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
No, I don't think I knew it, Lisa. I'm sort of trying to convince myself I did, but I don't think I did. So I actually haven't watched it. If I could have found it on a freebie, I would have, but I could only find a subscription, and I didn't really have the time anyway to watch it all. But if you have a look at the trailers and stuff on YouTube, I know you're a big Hendrix fan. His acting of Hendrix is outstanding, like properly outstanding. You would double take him a couple of times. So I think there's something about the guy as well. So I've always got a bit of respect for guys that have got their chops on that side as well. Of course, saying all that, you can imagine Twitter gave them a bit of a hard time. 82% no. 74 minutes long. I think it is too long. But
do you ever wonder with the Twitter vote though that people have actually listened to it or know it, and they just go Outkast?
I think I don't know, if I'm being honest with you. I think what is interesting, if you follow any other Twitter chats that are on, I don't know, there's guys that do Beatles polls and all that kind of stuff, and I think there's a bit of that on those that you either sort of love the Beatles or you hate them, and
I'm not really a poll person.
Don't agree with that per se. So I think maybe some of our guys maybe don't quite sit and dial in. But like us, Lisa, I think everyone's really busy, aren't they? So unless it's been on their radar,
and you're not getting, enough people, that they've not got time to do that, so they don't vote because they don't know it.
Yeah.
See, and that is an issue.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Anyway, definitely.
I definitely I really admire this pair for the way that they've really, really worked hard at their craft, and it seems to me that evolving together and bringing together their own different skills seems to be a real thing for them, and I think they've done it really successfully.
So, would you vote it on the list then?
Yeah, I would.
You would. Thank you, John.
It's a no for me. I think it's a solid album, but there's not enough standout tracks on it for me to vote it in.
Okay. Graham he wasn't a no, he didn't know it. He did say in the last podcast he likes Outkast, but he didn't know this album so well, so he was more neutral on that. David was a no, and Chris and George were both no's. Stephen, are you a yes or a no for Aquemini? Still can't say it. Yes or no, mate?
Yes.
You're a yes?
Yes.
For Outkast. Cool. And I'm a no for this one. Although I genuinely would, if somebody come back and asked me to re-vote on Stinkoni again, I would put it in. So maybe another one. We mentioned that with someone else as well. We'd maybe come back to it. Okay.
Maybe that's something I should revisit as well. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I've had that on since the last podcast we've done. So with a bit of a heavy heart, They're not through, I'm afraid. They're on hiatus now, aren't they? They haven't done anything together for 8 or 9 years, so who knows what they'll do. Okay, 48 might be reasonably quick or not. So 48 is Legend by Bob Marley and the Wailers. Okay. So, Rolling Stone, Bob Marley said, reggae music is too simple for American musicians. You must be inside of it, know what's happening and why you want to play the music. You don't just run to play this stuff because you think you can make a million off it. Ironically, this set of the late reggae's Idol's greatest hits has sold in the millions. On a single disc, it captures everything that made him an international icon. His nuanced songcraft, his political message, and of course, the universal soul he brought to Jamaican rhythm and Rastafarian spirituality. In the Gunfighter Ballad, I Shot the Sheriff, the comforting swing of No Woman, No Cry, and the holy promise of redemption song. Bob Marley, Legend, released May 1984. So my suggestion is that we have a very honest conversation at the front of this and decide whether we are willing to put a compilation album in principle. And if the answer is we are, we'll have the debate, because I'm more than happy to have it, but I don't want to debate it at length and then find out as a principle we're not going to vote it in. So are we, who is against the principle of voting a compilation album onto this list?
Me.
John, Lisa, Brian, Stephen, are you happy to have a debate?
I
You
don't see why not.
You're perfectly entitled to say that, for sure.
Most of the songs are on that last album that we've voted in as an album.
So we voted Exodus in, and I think we all said it was great. I actually said, I think side 2, I think I said was one of my favourite sides of any album ever. Love it, love it, love it. Only that's not fair. 5 of the tracks from Exodus are on Legend. So I think there's 14 tracks on it. Which, if I'm being honest, again, I was surprised about. I thought it was more than that from Exodus.
It's a amount though, so
It is, yeah, I agree, Lisa. And of course, without preempting any voting, I absolutely loved the album. The album was fantastic. Listening to this record was great.
yeah, no problem with that at all.
And I killed an hour of my life that was wonderful, lovely day, and I think I might have put it on again actually the next day or whatever. So it's a great set of records to sit and listen to. But I think when I listened to Exodus, I felt as if it was a moment in time thing going on. He'd moved to London and all that story that went with that. And of course, you just don't get that when you've got a 15-year cover on your records, you know. So,
all right, I get it.
I mean, I think from our end, I think there's 3 of us probably saying whatever we do, we're going to say no on a principle.
I just don't get it. I mean, you know, if you're looking at best ofs, that's a completely different discussion.
It's not an album.
No,
Well,
it's not an album recorded over a period of time. This covers his career pretty much. Well, you know, I just don't. That's not the point of an album. You know, a best of is celebrating someone's full career.
Yep,
this
agreed.
isn't.
So is this the
top 100 to me should not include compilations.
It
doesn't even include 2 of his best songs either.
Which ones?
Trenchtown Rock and Lively Up Yourself.
Yeah, I think one of the guys on Twitter, might have been John, that comes on quite a lot. He was saying the same thing, but I suppose you end up a bit like that debate we had with Chuck Berry and James Brown when it went to the extreme, where, you know, at least this is it's 14 tracks, I think, so it's bordering on a single record. So I guess you have to leave something off, right? You know, so at least they have that credibility to do that. And some of the other songs that are on there are wonderful. You know, Get Up, Stand Up, Redemption Song, Is This Love, No Woman, No Cry, Stir It Up. I mean, they're amazing songs. But they're all from different albums, right? So
yeah. I mean, I think it's probably the first reggae record I bought, and I still love it to this day. And it was. I thought, well, there's no point in listening to it. And I thought, do you know what? I will, just because I love it. But it doesn't meet the criteria for me. So
it's the last debate we have on the list as it stands. It's the last compilation. Or I think live. I don't think there's any more live from now to the number 1. So won't have to go through this pain again. But what we will be able to do, I think we've talked about potentially doing a live or a compilations list somewhere down the track, and I'd imagine Voodoo Legend would be pretty high up the list somewhere. So I don't think it'll go unnoticed. Stephen, we feel as if we're sort of cutting your nose off here, mate. Do you want to fall on your sword for this and persuade 3 people?
No, listen, what I'm going to say is you all made your point very articulately there, and I probably didn't. But I'm starting to get it now. Okay, but I love it. It's one of my favourite all-time albums. But
Yeah.
I
however,
love it. I
but
love
does
it.
but listen to what you lot are saying. You're now starting to, whoa, does it meet the criteria? And you're all probably quite right. So yeah, I'm not going to fall my sword, Brian. I'll take one for the team here.
Okay. Well, interestingly, I think if you remember, Graham last episode loved the album and voted no in principle because of the compilation. David
A man of taste.
F. Ross said exactly the same thing. Love it. Voting no. Chris voted yes. George voted yes, which I was quite surprised about. So
Really?
yes. I've probably got a comment somewhere from George if I can find that. Just
It's going to be a short comment.
Yeah.
I think we need
That's what he
to
said.
give a word. What did he say? It's fucking brilliant.
If I'm going to find it. He said,
But it's fair for the hell of it.
well, excuse my language, but when I said to him, remember to send me your votes, he said in response, they're all cunts except for Bob. And Ramones was his PS to that. Okay.
Oh,
And I
right.
got
Sorry,
a
I
card
thought
for
you.
Nick Elastic. Jeez, oh.
Not Bob, Bob Marley. So he voted it in, and I did just double check that with him, John, because I did say Mr. Welsh is going to love you for that, and he did reply saying he already does. So
Yeah,
that's
I was just
fair
a bit
enough.
worried. He was calling us all the C word there. Then I realised what he was actually saying.
It's not a
You
word I
wouldn't
use very
dare.
often. I'm only repeating what he said. So yeah, so I think if we're all saying no in principle, it obviously clearly is a no. But I think there's, out of all the albums we've done, there's a huge amount of love for this record. So if we do get to do this comp list, I'm pretty sure at least one of us will end up sticking this on our own 5 that we nominate, or however we do that, which would be nice to do. Couple of PSs to finish on, Marley, because
Stephen
sorry,
Pete's hand
Lisa.
up.
Sorry.
Stephen Pete's hand up.
No,
Sorry, mate.
that meant I would vote on what Brian just said.
Oh, I thought you were doing that. Please, sir, can I speak?
No, Lisa, I've had enough school this week. Enough's enough.
I thought it was
No.
maybe like.
Sorry, I was reading my notes. I can't read and look at the same time. No, it's just the 2 things I smiled at. It was the bit where he said that he's got at least 11 children, although no one's really sure how many he might have.
Oh, guy.
And when he was over in London, kind of getting to know everyone, he became quite a cool guy, didn't he? So there was a lot of journalists and stuff that were looking to interview him. And they said, well, we'll only interview you if you can put a football team together and play the Whalers, play Marley and the Whalers at 5s or 7s or whatever it was. So these guys had to scrabble teams together and have a kick about in the park before they would then sit down and talk about the music and whatever. So I think he's, massive. I also found this one, just to finish on it.
Sorry, Brian, was that not the start of his demise? Was a football injury?
It's a story, isn't it? Yeah.
He broke his toe and then it didn't heal. And then when they were actually trying to fix it, they discovered this kind of terrible cancer that was to take his life in the end.
Yeah, that's right, Lisa. Which obviously
Because he loved football, which is so tragic, isn't it?
supported Tottenham, believe it or not.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I know. Oh dear, indeed.
I heard he supported Celtic.
Yeah, I've actually got a Bob Marley CSC badge.
Was that Chelsea FC?
I should have had. No, Celtic, because he's.
Oh, very good. I knew
He's
we'd
got a
get onto
connection
that.
there.
Goodness me, I
Yeah.
don't even George on tonight, and I'm still getting it.
Don't get me started.
What was the other one? Just on that, I don't want to finish on a downer, but I did see this. I don't know if you saw this, John, when you were having a look, but when he was about to pass, his last words to one of his sons, Ziggy, was, when you're on your way up, take me up with you. When you're on your way down, don't let me down. And I think he was a sort of guy of principles, and I know that he became massively successful, but I don't think he really lost. In fact, if anything, he probably became a bit more political again, didn't he, towards the end of his career. So, yeah.
Did you ever see Ziggy on stage doing that BBC thing? Was it last year?
I didn't know. No.
BBC did this sort of series of it was like their orchestra, and they had Ziggy on, and he was absolutely amazing. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Ziggy, and he was just, he'd all the mannerisms. He was amazing. Something to maybe look up.
Yeah, I'll just make a wee note of that. If I find it, I'll stick it on the Twitter page so the guys can see it, because they do like us getting lists and stuff that we can look at. Twitter were 83% yes on this one, because of course they were, because of course they also love it. So there was a bit of a debate about albums and compilations and stuff, but even allowing for that, we got 83% in. So we'll come back to Bob, no doubt, if we do a greatest, and we have got one on any Exodus, which is on absolutely on merit. Cool. So 2 to go. 47 is the Ramones. Okay.
Ramones.
So yeah, thank you, Lisa.
I get those for things like that.
47 is
like
Ramones. Ramones. Thank you. Quote, our early songs came out of real feelings of alienation, isolation, frustration, the feelings everybody feels between 17 and 75, said singers Joey Ramone. Clocking in at just 29 minutes, Ramones is a complete rejection of the spangled artifice of 1970s rock. The songs were fast and antisocial, just like the band. Beat on the Brat, Brittley Pop, Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue, etc. Guitarist Johnny Ramone refused to play solos. His jackhammer chords became the lingua franca of punk, and the whole record cost just more than $600 to make. But Joey's leather tender plea, I want to be your boyfriend, showed that even punks need love. So that's Ramones, released 23rd of April, 1976, which happened to be my birthday. I'll tell you how old I was on that day.
I know.
Well, you could probably guess, right? I was a lot younger when I was younger. Yes, number 47. It was their debut studio album. Cool. So, John, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tell us about the Ramones.
Let's go. Yeah, okay. So the first punk album ever. I think that's widely accepted. 29 minutes long, 14 songs. Is it 14 songs? Yeah, 29 minutes, which is just absolutely bizarre. I mean, funnily enough, you were talking about Jay Z and the length of time it took him to do the Blueprint, which I think was 2 days. So this took 7 days to record.
Yep.
What the hell were they doing for the 6.5 days? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Good question.
Just bizarre. But yeah, I mean, I love it. Obviously, really like my punk. Funnily enough, you're talking, it was released on your birthday. The first gig that they played was the 30th of March 1974, which was also my birthday, and I'll not say what age I was then. And I wasn't in the audience for it either. Yeah, it's great. I think though, you listen to it and it's fast, it's furious, it's the 3 chords, it's pretty much the same throughout. I would say now, listening to it, for me, there's probably 3 standout tracks. I wouldn't rate it in my top 5 punk albums of all time, but I do think it set down the stepping stones for lots of bands to come after them. You know, there was a scene beginning to take off, particularly in London, and you know, those bands caught on to the Ramones, and certainly when the Ramones first came over to the UK and toured, the Clash, the Pistols all went to see them, hung out with them, all of that kind of stuff. So I think it's, as I say, I don't think it's one of the best punk albums of all time, not even close to it, but its legacy really shines through. And, you know, for that reason, I think it's an album you have to take seriously. You know, even things like just reading about them, you know, their gigs were pretty chaotic. They'd last for 15 minutes. And, you know, they're wearing the black leather jackets. And I'm kind of looking at that and I'm going, bloody hell, the Jesus and Mary chain must have been following that quite closely, because, you know, 8 years later, they were doing exactly that in the UK. And it was creating such a scene for them as well. I just think as well, just that time, sort of 74, 75, 76, 77 in New York, going down to Max's Kansas City, CBGB, all the bands that were coming through there, you know, the Ramones, Blondie, Television, the Cramps, I mentioned them again, Suicide, Talking Heads. Must have been absolutely amazing to be part of that, or even just going along and, you know, seeing those bands play, because the music they were creating really hadn't been done before. So it was such an exciting scene. So yeah, so I think
and just talking about that, John, I think I'm right. I think it was Lenny Kay that actually picked him up and brought them in. If you want, he was part of the Patti Smith group, obviously. So you're right. I mean, those connections. It's just, I suppose, a wee bit like punk in the UK when it kicked off. Just to be part of that London scene for 6 months must have been something else, and New York must have been the same, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Lenny Kay, and you know, I think the Village Voice magazine and all that kind of stuff, and it was, you know, they called it the Downtown Underground. Was the phrase that was used, and you know, even things going on, not just music but culturally. So going off on a different thread to a point, but off Broadway, you know, all of that was going on around about, you know, where all these bars were taking place, that they would have mad theatre. You know, that's Patti Smith started off going through that there, and obviously Lenny Kay you mentioned as well. So culturally there was just so much going on, you know, very anti-establishment, but you know, really creating a real scene. So yeah, that's my take on it. I just, you know, find it quite an interesting time, and they all died pretty young as well, which I think's, that's, you know, lived hard, die young, maybe, I don't know, but you know, I think 49, 50, 55 and 65 they all died, you know, the original lineup, which is no age at all, really.
No.
And a shame, because you know, you're kind of robbed of that a little bit, you know, because we want to see, you know, acts like that, you know, continue and flourish and play to other audiences as, you know, they go on. But I'll leave you with one thing though, which is a bit of a revelation. I've never owned a Ramones record.
Okay. We've
So
had this
there you
chat
go.
before. I think I asked you about My Bloody Valentine, was it? When we
Yeah.
were chatting about the influence and all that stuff, and I said to you, "Get all that. Have you ever bought it?" And you said, "No, I haven't." So do you think deep down you believe in its importance, but you don't love the record, or is it you just never get around to buying it, or what do you think?
I just never get down to buy it. I don't know why. Because I was buying, you know, in the early 80s, I was buying the Dead Kennedys, I was buying Blondie, lots of, you know, Sex Pistols, Stiff Little Fingers, Black Flag, you know, so I was buying plenty of punk, but Velvet, you know, not punk as such, Velvet Underground, all that kind of stuff, Cramps, as you would no doubt expect. So I was buying all of that. I've still got it, but for some reason, I never bought the Ramones. I don't know why, but
okay, well, we'll see how that plays out. So you reckon what kind of good year zero, if you want, or day zero for punk? Then this album, is that your?
I would say so. Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's a big discussion about, you know, did they bring it over, or did they have a look that then punk became in the UK, because it was a bit, I suppose, harder, if you want.
Was Patti Smith just before them?
She was, yeah, and again, arguably punk. Stooges, arguably punk. You know,
they definitely were the precursor for that punk movement.
So the Stooges manager managed them, didn't he, Danny Fields? So he managed the Ramones. So that was that kind of leg up, if you want. So they had lots of leg ups. They were adored by that, you know, critical commercial mass, but the commercial success they had was zero. I think they sold 6,000 units or something the first year of the album, you know, and it only went gold 20 years later or something like that. It was a wee bit like the Stooges to a point. I know Iggy was very successful, but, you know, the Stooges weren't that successful. Neither were the Velvets, really, in their own sort of lifetime, you know, but you can see the kind of influence of the Ramones pouring through as you get into the late 70s and beyond. So cool.
Well, that's right. I think
sorry, John.
It's just I was just going to say, I mean, that's right. A lot of the, you know, not a lot, but some of the albums on this list at the time were commercially flops. And, they've just grown through time specifically because of their influence, and then that's opened them up to become pretty well selling albums. Velvet Underground being an absolute classic example of that, and I think the Ramones for the legacy would be another one I would put in that type of category.
Agreed.
Which
Absolutely.
is why we should sort of be very careful not to just put in albums because they were massive sellers,
Yeah, I agree
you're
with that
saying,
as well.
sometimes albums grow over time, and the way that record sales have changed over the years. I don't know. Sorry.
No, I no, lead away, Lisa. I was just going to ask you that point about the balance between commercial and critical, and then some have it in spades, both of them, but they don't all have that. And there's, we've talked before about the guys that aren't on the list. The ABBAs of the world aren't on the list, and arguably, one of the greatest writers of songs ever. So it is hard to get that recognition and commercial success. And even when they went through, they didn't get any more successful, if that makes sense. They very rarely sold much at all.
I think some bands with their albums just sort of very slowly over time gain some sort of cult status, which makes them iconic. And it's not just about record sales.
Do you like the record?
I do, yes.
You do?
I do.
Good, excellent. And general Ramones fan, or was this your sort of?
Well, do you know, like John, I came to punk just a little bit late. I was just that wee bit young, but I did buy quite a lot of punk records. But I was never into the Ramones. I think it was just too early. And when I heard the name, the Ramones, I just said the Ramones, sorry. I think I maybe heard about them, but associated them with something different and didn't really get into them until a lot later in life.
Yeah.
So it's only now that I kind of appreciate that there would be loads of bands that wouldn't really be here without them, even like the likes of Sonic Youth, Nirvana, all kind of owe something to this. But I think, John was talking about the fact that songs are so short. It's a really quick album. It's very minimalist. The look is minimalist, the faded denim, the black, the iconic album cover, which they kind of did, that was just their whole image, wasn't it? But it was like a kind of backlash against your bands that were like, it was always like all about me and self-obsessed, like Yes and all that kind of stuff that I just into. So this was like they were anti-establishment, they were anti-complacency, and this was an actual physical statement, the just what they wore. For me, songs are really simple. You're not going to say, oh yeah, they're sort of really deep and all that, but I think there's something to be said for that. And I think a lot of the sort of I don't know, the structure to the short songs is something to do with the songs that they would have been brought up when they were young. So they would have been brought up.
Well, their icons were kind of the girl bands,
the Beatles, right?
Elvis,
songs where
early rock and roll,
bang, bang, bang.
Yeah,
rock
60s
roll,
girls groups.
pop,
That was their world. Pop
songs, just right in there.
Yep.
Get the song done, bang. Impact. And I feel that kind of reflects that. And not only is it punk, it's it's all the anti-establishment thing, and obviously they were young, they were pissed off, they were bored, like nights of I want to sniff glue, that just totally portrays their ennui as it did, many young people probably could be said of this time, with what's going on just now. But I just think that it's not just a punk record. I think there's a lot of pop records in there as well, because I think I keep saying it, Ramones really liked pop records.
They loved it.
I think they loved their pop. So, you've got like I Want to Be Your Boyfriend. I mean, it's just classic pop record, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just so much melody.
They did the cover of Let's Dance. They loved their pop. They were just bad old punks. They loved their pop, and I think that shows through in the album.
But so we did the Sex Pistols not long ago, and I think we talked a lot about how good the songs were on Bollocks. You know, so the attitude, great, get all that. But you actually sat down and listened to the songs, you know, start, middle, and end, catchy, well played.
The
You
first
know?
song on the album's blitzkrieg pop, and it does what it says in the tin, doesn't it?
So I don't know if you know that, if anyone knows this, come in. So I don't know if you know the jumping off point for that was them watching a performance of the Bay City Rollers on, I think it was a Johnny Carson show. I think one of the big American shows in back end of 75, mid to late 75, and they were singing a song called Saturday Night, which was one of their kind of later hits that they had. And that had a kind of let's go, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they were all sort of punching the air and stuff, stamping their feet at the start of the song. So although they weren't Bay City Roller fans per se, they loved the image and they loved the simplicity of it. And it was off the back of that that they started to get this idea of being more quicker, simpler, and having this kind of rhythm thing in there that was that kind of noise that.
Yeah, the tracks start really abruptly.
They do, yeah.
They all end really abruptly. That's it.
Yeah, Bay City Roller fans, that's what's not to like. Okay, so
I wasn't allowed to like the Bay City Rollers.
oh,
All my
goodness.
pals absolutely loved them and had all the gear, and my mother
Goodness
would
me.
not tolerate it.
Yeah, when Mr. McDade was full of hair, I remember him being a big Rollers fan for sure.
I was gutted.
I'm too young for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll come on to Steve in a second. The other thing I was going to mention, just to link it all together, was, you know, obviously they all adopted these pseudonyms. Because you know, when I was younger, I thought they were all called Ramon, but obviously they weren't. So, but I didn't realise that they picked it up off the alias that Paul McCartney used to use when he checked into hotels and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to call himself Paul Ramon. And they thought it was a really clever idea to have a kind of pseudonym, which they then all adopted at the same time and sort of added an E onto the end and stuff. So,
Ryan,
quite-
you've
quite
checked in
clever.
every hotel in the world, calling yourself Andrew Oswald for years.
No, that's my mate. I do. I stitch him up all the time. So, Stephen, Ramones, you got to like this, mate, haven't you?
Oh, Christ, yeah. Quick question. Where did the New York Dolls fit into this scene? Are they before or after?
The before it.
Before.
And it's a great point, mate, if you want to embellish that, because I've actually wrote down Mix of Stooges and New York Dolls. You
No,
know,
I
because
couldn't remember. I was
Yeah.
sitting here scratching my head thinking, were they before or after? Can't remember. So you guys are better than me. They were before, weren't they?
New York
Yeah,
Dolls
yeah,
were,
100%. Yep.
there'd be an overlap, you know, with the 74, 75, I guess, John. New York
Yeah.
Dolls would be their peak, yeah. So,
Yeah, I would say 73.
73, right.
Oh, that, yeah.
Mhm.
But certainly in their eye line, mate, and yeah, they're sort of declared big fans of Johnny Thunder and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Sorry, just a wee aside.
No, at all. No.
But anyway, yeah, I love the Ramones. Changed my world, frankly. Without the Ramones, there's, as you say, there's no Pistols, there's no Clash, there's no Jam,
Yeah,
and earth shattering.
yeah. And do you like the album itself? Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh crazy.
Yeah.
And as John keeps on going back to, albums can be too long, far too long. This is not far too long. You know,
No,
this is
it's not.
bang on. This is bang on the money.
14 tracks, 29 minutes.
Oh, that'll do me.
Yeah, absolutely. That would do me too. 64% Twitter. Yes.
Of course.
Positive. Thought it'd be a bit higher, to be honest. Yeah. Anything you don't like about it? So, sort of quick question then is, you know, that pop element of it. So it reminded me a little bit of when the Alarm first started. I was a fairly big Alarm fan.
Was I?
And I don't know if you remember when they made their first album, Declaration.
Yep,
So in effect, what happened was, it's a good album, right? But they kind of, that was a produced album. You know, they came in and they put horns on it and they multi-tracked and all the things they did to make a bigger sound. Whereas their singles up to that point were pretty much as they played live, they'd recorded them and put them out. And there was a bit of debate about the Ramones. They felt that their sound had been watered down for the album, whereas the producer felt it kind of needed to be to get the elements of the pop out, not just the punk side of it. I just wondered, do you hear any of that in the record? Does it feel sort of underproduced or light or anything like that?
Well, one of the things I did actually write down about it is the production isn't great, but who cares?
No, I don't care. I just wonder.
Spot on, John. Spot on.
Do you know
Although
that?
here,
Sorry, Lisa.
I don't think they cared.
I know I only know this because I heard it and I then went and listened to it. But if you listen to it with your tins on, get this right now. I think the bass is on your left ear and the guitar's on your right ear, and the drums and the singers are in the middle. If that makes sense, they're in both ears. And I think it's because when the guy was setting up the sound for them when they played, that was how they set their sound up live. So they just recorded it and mixed it the same way. So it kind of sounds quite different to a lot of the stuff that was going on at the time. And as you've mentioned, like Yes and stuff like that, Lisa. So you're right, it couldn't be more different, both in length and style and attitude, and of course the cover and all the other things that we've mentioned, and the legacy that sort of passed on. So it sounds like a pretty positive take on it for everyone. No negatives from my end. I think it's a great record, and interestingly, I think there was a 40th, when would that be, 5 years ago or so, 40th edition reissue thing, which is fine. It's exactly the same, and the demos are there and all the stuff you would listen to. But there's a live album on the luxury deluxe edition from the Roxy in LA in November '76 or something like that, and it's great. They played two sets there, kind of one after the other, and they're both about 30 minutes long or something like that, you know. And it's fantastic. To be there must have been amazing, you know. So yeah, big fans of them. And I don't have anything negative down here at all. I think every single thing that we've said about them,
Go.
positive. Go 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, they're in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, the massive influence on U2. So I've got a bit of a love-hate thing with U2. So I'm never sure whether that's good or bad news. But yeah, but you know, they're fantastic guys. So let's see, Ramones. We had Graham. Yes, we're a full house at the moment on yeses from our guests and George. So I've got a feeling we might be adding to that.
Oh yeah.
Are we all yes on it?
I am yes.
John?
Yes.
Hell yes.
That was reluctant.
No, it wasn't. I was just thinking about the fact you mentioned the band Yes, and I was wondering if they're going to be on the top 100, and will we be saying yes to yes?
Are you thinking you might just opt out of that one?
I don't know. My top of my head, I would say it's unlikely, John. But the way the kind of list going, if you want, it feels like it's moving away from those kind of one-offs and stuff. But we'll see. Absolutely. I know John Savage said, quote unquote, it's one of the few albums that changed pop forever.
Exactly.
Which I thought was pretty kind of on the money, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll take a bit of that. Cool. So they are in, as I say, Twitter were in as well, which was lovely, feeling the love there. And number 46 to finish is Graceland by Paul Simon. So let me just pull up my notes. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to escape the sun here and it's just not working.
Move house.
I know.
It'll be okay. It'll be pouring again soon. Okay, so frustrated by the experience of writing good songs that didn't come to life in the studio, Paul Simon set out to quote, make really good tracks, as he later put it. I thought I have enough songwriting technique that I can reverse this process and write this song after the tracks are made. Simon risked severe criticism by going to South Africa, then under apartheid, and working with the best musicians from the Black Townships. With the fluid energy and expertise of guitarist Ray Feary and the vocal troupe Ladysmith Blackman Bazo, Simon created an album about isolation and redemption that transcended world music to become the whole world's soundtrack. So that's the Stone summary of that. It was released in August 1986. Lisa, Paul Simon, Graceland, tell us about it.
So I kind of, as a 70s kid, grew up with Still Crazy after all these years and absolutely loved it. And then didn't hear any other Paul Simon. And then this record came out when I was at uni, and it kind of reminds me of the soundtrack to a very tedious long car journey, because it was like on a loop. And I remember at the time just drifting off, because I was probably just at that stage that I just didn't want to hear this. I wanted to listen to the Smiths and all sorts of, certain ratio, that kind of stuff that I was into at that time. So I enjoyed it, but it didn't really mean anything to me. But I'm so glad that I've revisited it, because the more I've listened to it, the more I've really loved it. I take it you don't want me to go into the controversial side of it, because we all know that.
No, it's all yours. I think it's part of the story, isn't it? So
Yeah, of
feel
course
free
it
to
is.
touch on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I know you don't need me to tell you about it. But I think what he did was quite brave. Obviously, it was a really controversial move to make. But he'd obviously not had very much success with the album before, which was
Hearts and Bones.
Hearts of Bones, I think.
Yep.
And of course, he was against a background of obviously the UN-backed boycott from 1980. So, which was requesting all artists, writers, musicians to boycott South Africa, which many did. And of course, the ones that did go for a bit of money were absolutely blasted and said, okay, we won't go back. But I suppose in his defence, he didn't actually perform there. He did refuse a lucrative offer to play Sun City. But he'd been listening, he'd always been listening to that kind of African music, and he wanted to record with the artist rather than just go and play there. So I don't know, it made him very unpopular, didn't it?
Did for a while. So the story, you're right, that you can't really separate. This is one of those art and the artist thing, isn't it? That there was a backstory here. And in some ways it inspired them to make the record, and in some ways that was the challenge of the record, until it became huge, of course.
So it really pissed off artists against apartheid, and
it did. Yeah, they were all at him, weren't they? Stevie Van Dance and all the guys.
Whilst so many artists like Stevie Wonder, oh God, what am I thinking? Who else? Peter Gabriel, they were all absolutely very vocal. All this special AKA, Nelson Mandela.
Yep.
Free. So yeah, but at the end of the day, when the album came out, it was really well received. There was just this political controversy. So it's whether you can put that aside and just take the music for the music. Paul Simon himself said, well, understand all that, but what I wanted to do was something really different. It wasn't about just going and playing in South Africa. He wanted to work with these artists who were pretty pleased to be involved and actually have their music. I mean, the view we had of South Africa was very limited and very kind of bleak. So to suddenly have this like rich music, in our ears was probably quite something for many people. And the artists themselves would tour. I think it was Ladysmith Black Mambasa toured forever after the album.
Yep.
So that's just the kind of whole background thing to it. But as an album, I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. I just think that I was never really I've never really listened to anything like that before, and I feel that this combination of the black rhythm and his particular musical style and his sort of intelligent, really witty lyrics just really bring this kind of rich music all together.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed it. I mean, I love it. For instance, like Graceland is just incredible how Paul Simon can tell a good story. And he had this thing in his head, I think, about he just had this lyric in his head, I'm going to Graceland and I'm going to Graceland. He couldn't get it out of his head, and then he obviously split up with Carrie Fisher, and his last album had been a flop. So he decided to go to Graceland and was pretty unimpressed. And it was only when he saw Elvis's grave, and the quote on it was, can't tell you exactly, but it was something about how, you know, music brings everyone in the world together, and he just suddenly like that's it, that's what it is. And I think that's what inspired him. I've probably missed out loads of really important stuff here. But that's his skill though, like he brings that, you know, the song Graceland, he brings that narrative and turns it into a metaphor for going from despair into hope, and much wider implications.
Yeah, so they ends up going for the song New York to obviously down to sort of the Memphis area to Africa, doesn't it? You know, it becomes a sort of travelling song with his, you know, his son involved and stuff like that, and the Carrie Fisher breakup and all the things you talk about. So there is a lot of emotion in the record.
And it is extended to his journey to South Africa, and of course he revisited that later, which I actually haven't seen it, the Under African Skies, and I really want to go and watch it now.
Yeah, it's good.
Because really I think he had a lot of difficult conversations with people there about the, you know, the fact that he apparently when he'd gone for advice off Harry Belafonte, and he said go and talk to the ANC. Of course he didn't, and you know that probably made things difficult for him. So he talked to a lot of people. He apparently talks to a lot of people in this who are quite critical of him, but they shake hands in the end and they kind of see each other's point of view. So I'd really like to watch that. I haven't seen it.
I have seen it, but some time ago. But it's well worth watching, and it also revisits the whole thing about he had an assassination threat against him because he eventually went back and played in South Africa, and they basically had to call off the ANC because they had a hit out on him, and this is all going on in real time as he's playing the gig and stuff there. So there's a fascinating sort of parallel story if you want to, but obviously it's baked into the sound as well. So as I said earlier, it is hard to work out whether you can sort of have one without the other. But it's really nice comments, Lisa. So thanks for that, Stephen. What's your take on Graceland, mate?
Well, it's complicated. Lisa's touched on a lot of it already. I think it's hold on, I've scribbled some stuff down. He's a wonderful artist, but is it a great album? Is it worthy of the top 100 ever made? Great album. However, some of the subject matter, I don't know.
So you would have liked Simon and Garfunkel, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Bits and pieces.
I'm just saying that because Bridge Over Troubled Water, for example, is not on the list. Yeah. Which there's been a bit of a Twitter chat about that.
Yeah, that's a bit of a debate, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's where I'm going. But that's a question for another day when we start to bring them in, possibly.
I don't know, just interesting. The only reason I'm saying it is, I'm sorry to cut over you, but one of the guys who chats to us, Rebel Rock, so he was chatting about it, and somebody else said, not arguing Graceland, I just wonder whether it's better than Bridge Over Troubled Water or other things. Yeah.
Well, you said it better than I have, Brian. That's where I'm going. Yeah, right. It's good stuff, but is it better? No, I don't. I wouldn't agree. And right there.
Okay.
When you're talking about Simon and Garfunkel at the very early stages of their career, and I mean, I have to say, I love all artists at the beginning of their career. Something that you can never capture again.
Yeah.
But this is something a lot later. That's, you know, it's what, 20 odd years later.
Pretty much, yeah.
And he's doing something completely different. So I don't know how comparable they are.
But it's different better, Lisa.
Is it? I've no idea. It's different, not different.
Doesn't it have to be better?
No, it's just different, isn't it? I think literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're talking about meritocracy here. We're talking about a 100.
Agreed, and it's interesting. It's interesting
there's
that
a lot of factors that you have to take into consideration. I think that we have to, like, personally, we just think, well, you know, what he did was pretty, you know, whether you agree with it or not. I mean, he did a concert at the Royal Albert Hall, didn't he? And Weller and Bragg et al. Were all outside, you know,
that's right,
protesting. And Billy
my guys.
Bragg. I am a Paul Simon fan, and I feel really
Yeah.
conflicted to be doing this. And I get what they were doing. But that's all very well. And a lot of these, very vocal musicians or artists, they all get on a wagon and, I don't know if I always agree that that's the way to go. I think he was accused of totally abandoning the solidarity for the sort of 30 Black musicians that he was working with.
So his counter.
The bigger impact was that we got to hear that. We didn't hear that music, and they enjoyed touring forever after that, and it was appreciated. They got the appreciation that they should have deserved, and it's like it's an education.
So I'll bring John in here. His counterpoint to all of that. And also, I'm a huge Bragg and Weller fan. Absolutely, I adore the guys. So I remember all this very well. But his counterpoint was that he went there through choice. He asked local musicians to be part of that. They were under quite a lot of pressure as well from their end. So they then chose to do it because they wanted to. He paid them
he was exiled.
Well, the rack rate was
$15 on apartheid.
$15 an hour was the rack rate for musicians at the time in Africa. He was paying them $200 an hour because he wanted to get them recognised and remunerated, because they weren't earning anything at the time because nobody was there recording. There was no tours. There was none of this stuff going on. And also he then brought some of them back to America. So as part of his finishing the record, he finished in America and he brought some of them over and helped them to finish it. He co-credits 5 of the songs. So again, he tries to make sure that where he thinks it's relevant, it's a collective. So there's his counterpoint to all of that is I get all that, but I was making an album and the people I made the album with wanted to be part of it.
Yes,
the music should be bigger than the story.
He didn't go there to perform, so he felt that he wasn't.
Correct. Yeah, correct. John, there's a lot in this one, mate. We literally could spend hours on this. Very complicated. John, what's your take, mate, to finish us off?
Yeah, there's a few interesting dynamics here, right? I think, firstly, the world was a smaller place in 1986, and that music probably hadn't really been heard before very much.
That's an important point.
Yeah. So he's actually bringing that to a more mass audience, and that's had an impact. Yeah, he was not the first person to do that by any means, but nonetheless, the album success, and I think Lisa had mentioned Ladysmith, Blackmore and Basil coming off the back of that and, making a career throughout the world's, fantastic thing. You talk about the recording process, and I do wonder about it because he laid down some tracks in South Africa, then took it back to New York, and him and I think the producer thought it would be very simplistic to, simplistic music in some ways, that just to replicate it, but they couldn't do it. So he then brought some of these musicians over, but did they do that because they couldn't replicate it, or was that the driver? I don't know. And also, where did they get the idea? Yeah, and also, where did they get the idea for the album? Right, so he saw someone singing, I think Saturday Night Live, the house band, a female singer called Heidi Berg. Thought, brilliant, what a voice. Got in touch, wanted to produce a music. So she then gave him a bootleg of Soweto street music, said, this kind of thing I want to do. And then what does he do? Next thing he's away to South Africa. And he's stolen her. She was in New York. She was in New York.
It is one of many complex parts of this debate.
What was the band's name that the song derived from? Because he went over and he worked with them, and there was a language problem and everything, but they eventually got there. But I can't remember the name of the band, and I'm thinking that's the same thing.
No, so John's right. Somebody performs in Saturday Night Live. He hears him, really likes him, gets in touch, asks to make a record. That doesn't quite follow through for whatever reason, but she gives him a tape. He then gives it to the producer to say, can you go and find out who these guys are playing on it? It's amazing. He says they're all from around Johannesburg somewhere, and he says, let's go to Johannesburg. And next minute he comes back with like a whole bunch of things recorded that are these guys in a recording studio for a couple of weeks just knocking out jams and stuff like that. So you're absolutely right, John. It's absolutely all in the money. He brings it back. He's then not too sure how to make a record of it. And he brings some of them over. He also brings in guys like Los Lobos to play on it to help him get that kind of rhythm thing going again. There's a dispute with them. They on a
He didn't pay them.
correct. Again, it's a dispute, isn't it? Who knows the rights or wrongs? But they're certainly playing on it. So
Oh God, I didn't know that.
So whether it's their song that he took or whether he led it and they played on it, who knows, right? Unless you were there, you don't know, right? So there's massive amount of noise on this one, and I don't know whether that makes you even more impressed that it came out the other end with an amazing album, whether you like it or not. Of its time, it was a kind of an amazing different record, or whether that puts you off loving it.
Yeah,
it's a hard one.
I think it is very hard. I mean, probably my favourite song on the album's Under African Skies.
Yeah.
And I love it, right? It's really harmonious. It's got Linda Ronstadt singing on it. I keep thinking,
Sun City, right?
And she'd went to Sun City. So I keep thinking, you're not really thinking this through.
He says that
he's the Everly Brothers on Graceland.
He has.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
So he said the Linda Ronstadt thing was like a confessional thing for her. That was her making good, if you want, on the mistake she made in inverted commas. But you're right. It's just another layer to the. It's a fascinating. No wonder there's great documentaries and stuff about it.
Things on it. If this is a global record.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the other songs as well, Gumboots. I was listening to that and thinking, that sounds like double Dutch. If you listen to the the background of the song,
it's a bit,
John, I was trying to work out. I was like, what is that? What is that?
Dutch.
What is that? That's it. Thank you.
And that would have been what, 83, 84 or something?
That was 83. 83.
Right.
So I'm sure Malcolm McLaren's clearly he's got that from elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, guys, he's just knitting that rhythm.
But hold on a minute.
I'm going to sleep tonight.
Hold on a minute, right? So just on that point,
me all day that I could just get that. But what was it? And I thought, if I can just get that, I can work it out. That's what it is.
So I think, I'm wrong many times on this, but I think that story goes full circle, because I think what happened was that McLaren got that sound from the kids on the streets in New York doing the double skipping rope stuff.
Yep.
And Simon says, I knew that sound because I lived in New York. We were all aware of that. That was street music in New York. So his argument was McLaren appropriated it from where he lived, which was in New York. He then went to Africa and in effect picked up sounds and samples that were very similar to what McLaren had picked up from New York in the first place. So I don't know why he had to go thousands of miles to pick up some of that when in effect it was on his doorstep. Yeah,
and if he was clever enough, he'd have done it first.
But he was up to his neck in it with poor Carrie at the time, wasn't he? Going through a split up.
Well, I think his life was in a bit of disarray at that point, wasn't it?
So John, and I have I could chat about this all night, to be honest. It's probably a one-off podcast. So do you think the actual record, so parking all this stuff, and I totally get all that, do you put the record on and hear it and think, actually, it's a really good record?
It is a really good record, but it is tainted. There's no doubt about it. And there's a few things in there that I don't know the answers to. They don't sit well with me. But saying that, it's a bloody good record.
So I'll finish off with all that. Just to give you a quote from someone. So this is a quote I got, right? So quote says, I don't like the idea that people who aren't adolescents make records. Adolescents make the best records, except for Paul Simon, except for Graceland. He's hit a new plateau there, and he's writing to his own age group. Graceland is something new. That song to his son that he sings is just as good as Blue Suede Shoes. Quote, before you were born, dude, when life was great. Unquote. That's just as good as Blue Suede Shoes, and that is a new dimension. So that is a direct quote from an interview that Joe Strummer gave on January 88, the year or so after the album came out.
That's quite a poignant song, isn't it? And
it's an amazing song, actually. Yeah, back to that, the breakup and what have you. And of course, Strummer, was into world music, and all that stuff that he ended up, you know, becoming sort of right into as well, which I thought was very interesting. Don't know what he thinks of Paul Simon as a person, but he obviously was a big fan of the record, as well as the fact he did the Chevy Chase video and all that stuff, right, didn't he? So, which was good fun as well. It's a fascinating discussion for the last one of the night. I've always had a soft spot for him. I'm not a big Simon and Garfunkel fan, but I've had a soft spot for him because I think he's always tried things that are a wee bit different. I've not necessarily liked them all, but I like guys that try things different. He also produced the Jackson C. Frank album. Do you know that him? He was a kind of folk protest singer in the
They're going
60s.
too deep now, Brian.
He only did one album, Jackson C. Frank, but he's got a famous song called Blues on the Game. And Simon produced that record, and it's
Pink and Blue covered that.
You well have done, mate. Yeah, you well have done. And the other thing I found out, and I had no idea why I didn't know this. Does anybody know this? It's Simon and Garfunkel's original name.
Paul and Art.
Yeah, I think you'll actually like this. Tom and Jerry. They were called Tom and Jerry for a number of years, and somebody in New York grabbed them and said, "Your songs are pretty good. You need to change your name." It's Honks, you know. So, oh, there you go. Whoever that was needs a pat in the back. So yeah, a whole bunch of stuff there. Literally another 20 minutes we could debate on it, but I think we are in a complex position. I think there's a lot of great stuff on the record, and there's definitely some noise around it. And we've done this art and artist thing before. So I'm trying to see what the guys come up with. So Graham was a yes, David was a yes, Chris was a yes, and George was a no.
Was he?
Yeah, so
Oh, he's just a difficult.
he says, I love Paul Simon generally, but that album irritated me. It was cultural appropriation. It was George's take on it. So you got Joe Strummer saying it's amazing. You got George saying not so sure about that. So two icons of our music world. Okay, so let's go round. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 3 guests, and George, 3 yeses and a no. So John, what we having, mate?
Yeah, I think if I just look at the album and forget about the controversy behind it, it's a difficult thing to do. I will edge to a yes.
I'm feeling your pain, mate. Lisa.
This for me isn't tricky because I'm a yes, but I have this conversation all the time about the music and the artist, and you know,
it'll be coming up again for sure.
A wee bit, I don't know. What is wrong with embracing another culture? Why do we have to say that that's cultural appropriation? Why not embrace it and bring it to as John said earlier, we were in a different time. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have that access. The way that we viewed South Africa was very blinkered. And so this brought something completely like, you know, rich and wonderful, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going off on Elisa again, but I'm a yes.
You're a yes. Stephen.
And I still like the Smiths, despite the fact that Morrissey's an absolute wanker. So get where I'm coming from.
We will come back to this discussion for sure. With some of the artists that are coming up.
It's the same discussion. It's like viewing the album for what it is, what you hear. And I think that's important. I'm
not entirely sure a guy with a wanker is the same as, you know, taking on apartheid and what have you. But I do get your point.
It's simple. It's simple. It's music artist.
Totally get your point. Stephen?
I'm a cautious yes.
A cautious yes? That's a new category.
Cautious yes.
Right, okay. That's not a maybe, is it then? No?
No, it's not a maybe. It's a new category.
Right. I am also a yes, but I could not agree more with some of your comments about the complexities of saying yes to this one. But on the basis that we have to say yes or no, it's a yes. So other than...
I've got a horrible wee bit of me thinks Paul Simon used people to a very, very small extent.
I think the Los Lobos thing's got a bit of legs in it. I don't know if you've listened to Los Lobos, but
Yeah.
I've got a couple of the records.
Add Paul Simon to the massive list of,
Yeah.
of artists that have made millions in music and used other people. I mean, you could go on forever.
We've had some of them on one of the recent podcasts. I'd need to go back and check my
Rebel
notes.
Silver.
Who basically, I think, took a lot of stuff from people he was recording with and didn't credit anyone. And we've had guys that have had to retro credit and stuff, haven't they? And co-credit, and
Yeah.
we did the Claire Torrey thing, didn't we? The Great Gig in the Sky on the Floyd record and stuff. So it's a thing, right? I think in his defence, he tried to co-credit as much as he thought was justified at the time, other than Los Lobos, which definitely has got a bit of
Yeah, that was probably the only bit that I thought, well, there was no need for that.
a bit of a stink about it, hasn't it?
No need for that. After he'd gone that far,
Yeah.
why did he do that? That's questionable. But at the end of the day, the way I view this is I'm just looking at the album and what I think of it. Although the debate is really important and interesting.
It's very important, and we voted it in. So 43 minutes, 53% yes. So again, lots of that. You heard me read out some of the chat about Graceland and what have you. So it definitely does split the audience. So, but for the moment, it's on our list. Do check out the video, the documentary, sorry, under African Skies. It's great. As a very quick aside, having done some Googling on Paul Simon, there's a brilliant clip of him and George Harrison from Saturday Night Live in '76. The two of them sitting acoustic guitars, co-duetting on "Here Comes the Sun" and "Homeward Bound." If you like that kind of stuff, it's wonderful. So, cool. That's us, I think. We're all in. So, what did that give us there then? So we had Jay Z was a yes, Outkast was a no, Marley was a no, Ramones were a yes, and Paul Simon was a yes. So that's another 3 out of 5. Okay. Do you know we've not had a 5 out of 5 podcast yet?
Good thing,
That's a
Brian.
good thing.
So probably a good thing. You're right, Stephen. Probably it's a good thing, mate, but we haven't. So maybe next one, right? We'll see. And on that point, then on the next one, our next 5 to review will be Prince, Sign of the Times,
Ooh.
Easy, done.
Nas, Illmatic,
Who?
Nas, N-E-S, Nas,
Nice.
Tribe Called Quest, The Low End Theory, Radiohead, OK Computer, and Rolling Stones, Let It Bleed, which I think is the first Stones record as well. So
There's room for controversy there.
yeah, again, another cracking bunch of things to look and chat about, and I think we might also have a guest on the next one, hopefully, if all our diaries all align. So, thank you very much. Have we missed anything, guys? Have we filled another 90 minutes or so up of our life?
Right, how do you think George is feeling?
I think he'll tell us how he's feeling once he finds out. We've voted it in, so he might well use his veto on the next recording when he comes back on. So we'll see how that goes. Any more, guys? Are we good with that?
I'm all right. Brian, I'll see you on Saturday.
Brilliant. Really enjoyed that one tonight. Actually, that was good fun. Thanks, guys, and we'll catch up again soon. Take care.
Right, cheers, guys.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye.